You have seen them before. Two locks of hair, curled or hanging, framing the sides of a Jewish man's face. Maybe on the street, maybe in a photo, maybe in a film. And if you are honest, you have probably wondered, why? Is it a tradition? A fashion choice? A sign of belonging to a specific group? Here is what almost nobody knows. Those curls are not a custom. They are a commandment. Written in the Torah over 3,000 years ago, Leviticus 19, verse 27. 6 Hebrew words that have shaped the appearance of Jewish men across every continent, every century, every culture they have ever lived in. And the reason behind those 6 words, the reason the rabbis gave for why this specific place on the head must never be cut, is unlike anything most people would expect. Today, we are going to find out exactly what those words say, why they were written, and what it means to carry them on your own face every single day of your life. Welcome. What you are about to learn is one of the most visible and least understood traditions in all of Jewish life. Something millions of people have seen without ever being told what it actually means. By the end of this video, you will understand not just the tradition, but the idea behind it. And that idea is more powerful than the curls themselves. Before we go further, if these ancient teachings have given you something worth thinking about, subscribe right now. One tap. Every week, this channel goes deeper into the wisdom and traditions of the Jewish people. And this community is growing because people like you believe these things deserve to be understood. Subscribe, and let's begin. The tradition begins with a single verse, Leviticus 19, verse 27. In Hebrew, 6 words. In English, you shall not round off the corners of your head, nor shall you destroy the corners of your beard. That is the entire commandment. No explanation, no context, no further instruction. Just do not round the corners of your head. And for 3,000 years, Jewish scholars have asked, what does that mean exactly? What is a corner of the head? Where does it begin? Where does it end? The Talmud, in Tractate Makot, chapter 20, provides the answer. The corners of the head are the temples, the area of hair in front of the ears, extending to beneath the cheekbone, on a level with the nose. This specific area, and only this area, must not be shaved completely. The Hebrew word for these corners is peot, the same word used in the verse itself, and it means simply edge, side, corner, a geometric word applied to a human face. The instruction is precise. Do not erase the edge. Do not eliminate the boundary between forehead and ear. Leave something there. Now, the deeper question. Why would the Torah care about the hair on the sides of a man's head? The answer, according to Maimonides, one of the greatest Jewish scholars of all time, is found in the context of the verse itself. Leviticus chapter 19 is filled with warnings about adopting the practices of surrounding nations, specifically the idolatrous practices of ancient Egypt and Canaan. Maimonides writes in his Mishneh Torah, the prohibition against rounding the corners of the head was specifically because this was a practice of ancient pagan priests. Certain idolatrous groups in the ancient world shaved their side locks as part of their religious rituals, to honor their gods, to mark their priestly status, to signal allegiance to a specific cult. The Torah said, do not do this. Not because the hairstyle itself was evil, but because the Jewish people were being called to be distinct, to look different, to carry their identity visibly, on their own bodies, as a daily reminder of who they were and who they were not. Maimonides explains it simply. God wants Israel to remain distinct from other nations, as a means of remaining close to their own values and distant from others. The peot were not about vanity. They were about identity, a quiet, physical declaration, worn on the face, every single day. Now, here is where it gets interesting. The Torah only requires that this area not be completely shaved. A short sideburn is enough to fulfill the commandment technically. So why do many Jewish men, particularly in Hasidic and Yemenite communities, grow their peot so long? Long enough to curl, long enough to hang past the cheekbone, long enough to become the most visually striking element of their appearance? The answer has 2 layers. The first is emphasis. The rabbis teach that when the Torah singles out a specific act, a specific place on the body, It is inviting attention to that place. Many Jewish men chose to honor that attention not by merely fulfilling the minimum, but by making it visible, by letting it grow, by wearing the commandment not as a whisper, but as a declaration. The second layer is mystical. The Kabbalistic tradition, Jewish mysticism, teaches that the peyot correspond to specific channels of spiritual energy that flow through the body. The area of the temples, according to Kabbalistic teaching, represents the connection between the intellectual faculty, the part of the mind that thinks and reasons, and the more intuitive spiritual dimensions of consciousness. To grow the peyot long was, in this tradition, to honor that connection, to wear it outwardly, to say with your appearance, I take seriously the relationship between the mind and the spirit. Different communities develop different styles. Yemenite Jews grow long, thin curls that hang beside the face. Hasidic Jews often curl theirs into tight ringlets. Others tuck them behind the ear. Still others keep them short but present. The style varies. The commitment does not. We are halfway through, and what comes next is the part of this story that I find most moving. Because it is not about hair. It is about what people are willing to carry and refuse to give up when everything else is being taken from them. If this video is giving you something, hit the like button right now. 1 second. It helps more people find these teachings. And if you have not subscribed, do it now. Because what comes next will change how you see every Jewish person you have ever passed on the street. Here is the part of the story that most people never hear. Throughout history, across centuries of exile and persecution, the peyot became a target. Not because they were threatening, because they were visible. In 1845, the Russian Empire officially banned peyot. Jewish men were required by law to shave their side locks. In communities across Eastern Europe, Jewish men who refused faced fines, imprisonment, and violence. Some complied under duress. Many did not. They found ways to keep small traces, hidden when necessary, grown back when possible. And then, in the 20th century, came the worst chapter. The Nazis, during the Holocaust, specifically targeted Jewish peyot as a tool of humiliation. When Jewish men were brought to the camps, their side locks were cut first, publicly, deliberately, as an act of degradation designed to strip them of identity before stripping them of everything else. The Chabad.org records this directly. Throughout the ages, and most recently by the Nazis, much animosity and torture was directed specifically at the Jewish peyot. For the peyot are a sign that differentiates and clearly marks the Jew. However, and this is the part that matters, instead of being embarrassed by them, many Jews literally gave their lives for their peyot. They refused to cut them, even when cutting them might have offered some protection, even when keeping them invited danger. They kept them. Because to cut the peyot was not just to change a hairstyle, it was to erase a piece of who they were, and they would not do it. Today, in cities all over the world, Jewish men and boys wear peyot openly. In New York, in Jerusalem, in London, in Buenos Aires. Some long and curled, some short and barely visible. Some tucked behind the ear, but present. And what strikes me about this tradition, now that you know its full history, is what it represents. It is not simply a hairstyle. It is a physical record of everything that was tried against it and failed. Every empire that banned it. Every regime that targeted it. Every moment of humiliation designed to make someone cut it off. And yet, it is still here. Still growing. Still curling beside the faces of Jewish boys and men on every continent on earth. The Yemenite Jews have a word for their peyot that I keep returning to. They do not call them peyot. They call them simanim, signs. Not signs of difference, not signs of separation. Signs. A mark worn on the face that says quietly to anyone who sees it, I know who I am. I know where I come from. I know what has been carried to bring me to this moment, and I am not ashamed of it. 6 words in the book of Leviticus, written over 3,000 years ago. A commandment about the corners of the head, about leaving an edge unshaved, a boundary uncut. What began as a distinction from the practices of ancient idolatrous priests became, over centuries, one of the most recognizable markers of Jewish identity on earth. Banned by empires, targeted by persecutors, cut by force, and grown back again. Every curl that hangs beside a Jewish man's face today carries 3,000 years of history inside it. Not as a burden, as a declaration. I am still here. I am still this. No one has taken it from me. That, perhaps, is what those 6 words in Leviticus were always pointing toward. Not a hairstyle, a refusal to disappear. Before you go, I want to ask you something. The next time you see a Jewish man with peyot, what will you think about? The commandment? The history? The centuries of people who refused to cut them even when cutting them was safer? Write it in the comments below. One sentence. I read every single comment. And this community consistently gives the most thoughtful answers I have ever read. If this video moves something in you, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find these teachings. And subscribe, because next week, we are exploring another tradition that Jewish people have carried visibly through history, one that most people walk past every day without understanding what it is protecting. One tap to subscribe. Thank you for being here. Shalom.